a supporter than the information itself. So, making this film that got over 5,000 hits on his phone in Colombia in a minute is a much better use of your resource, I would assert, than spending $25,000 hiring a video firm to do something, producing for another couple $1,000 CDs, which you hand out to prospective donors that throw them all in the trash. So this, again, is, this is one of my many, but one of my soapboxes for NGOs. If I never get another CD, I'll be really happy, and I will promise to go and watch your video on YouTube. I want to introduce Ben Binswanger from the Case Foundation. I don't even know, Ben, if you know this, but I have such fond memories of Ben because my first week on this job, about 10 years ago, I found myself in Washington, D.C., doing a playground build with Kaboom for Businesses Strengthening America, which was, at the time, an initiative by the White House to really promote volunteerism. And I found myself next to Ben sort of digging ditches and putting in tan bark on the playground. And it was and Steve Case was there, and he was, doing the heavy lifting, and we had Jeff Schwartz from Timberland, who I adore, who had paint on his hands from another event that he had been at with his son the week before. And Ben has continued for me to be a mentor and a leader, probably unknowingly, across the country in my job over the last 10 years. And I have deep respect for the work that the Case Foundation does. It's largely due to Ben that they've moved in the direction that they have over this last decade. And they do all kinds of brilliant things around using internet-based technology tools, from the America's Giving Challenge, which he could tell you a little bit more about, to their health initiative, really trying to democratize health information for people online. And I just have great respect for all of the work that you do. So thank you so much for offering to moderate our panel.
My pleasure.
Come on up.
I'm going to invite the panel to join me, but while they're coming up, I just was checking my Twitter feed, and just to show you how effective these tools are, the Compact Disc Makers Association of America has already launched the Stop Suzanne DiBianca campaign. So, as you can see, these things have a tremendous impact. You've just got to figure out how to take advantage of them. Before I introduce the panel, I thought I would just ask a couple of questions so we can understand where people in the room are with the way in which they're thinking about the tools that we're talking about today. So if you're already using these tools in some way in your organization, could you raise your hand? Okay. And how many people are not using them as much or as well as they would like to be using them? How many people are facing any internal resistance from any of their stakeholders to using these tools? Okay, so I think we'll move in, and I just should ask, how many people are hoping not to have to raise their hand when they came to this session? No, well, I think what I'm going to do, this is a great panel. We're very lucky to have who we have here with us, because I think we're going to be able to get at some of the issues that it sounds like a lot of you are thinking about and perhaps even struggling with. And I think our goal here is to help understand how to use the tools well, but also how to talk about what challenges organizations face when they're trying to make a shift to cloud computing. So let me start by introducing the gentleman on my far left. Tim Fullerton is the online communications manager for Oxfam America, which is an organization committed to creating lasting solutions to poverty, hunger, and injustice. Tim also recently directed the state and regional email campaign for Obama for America, and he just woke up. Next, let me introduce Judy Sohn, who is the Vice President of Operations for the Colorectal Cancer Coalition. Judy began her journey into the area of colorectal cancer advocacy when her father died of the disease about 10 years ago. She was a founding member of the Colon Cancer Alliance, and right now she is maintaining the ever-growing website and directing information technology for her organization. And then we have a really interesting gentleman, Jake Brewer, and I'm going to have to know one of the things he's done in his past, because I think it's so interesting. We're not going to talk about it, but we're just going to mention it. So Jake right now is the executive director of the Energy Action Coalition, which is committed to mobilizing millions of young people in demanding a green economy and a clean energy future for America. Jake was previously the director of partnerships for the global management team of Idealist, but he also was a corporate consultant in the Middle East oil sector, something you can ask him about later. Lastly, one of my favorite people in the world, Michelle Nunn, is the CEO of the Points of Light and Hands-On Network. She was the founding director of Hands-On Atlanta, and she's played a central role in the growth of a national movement around volunteering that now has hundreds of affiliates around the country. So please join me in welcoming our panelists. So I'm going to start off by asking you all a question about how you're using these tools in your organization. I'm going to invite you to talk for a minute about what your organization does when you talk about how you're using those tools. So, Tim, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. Well, first, before I do that, I just want to say thanks to Google, Salesforce, and Facebook for having this event. I think it's a really important conversation to have. And the other thing I want to say really quickly is when I was asked to speak on this, I actually had to go online and look up what is cloud computing. I wasn't quite sure what the term is, and I know some of you are probably feeling the same thing, so I'm right there with you. But really, I mean, Oxfam is a large international organization dedicating to eradicating poverty around the world, and not always the most sexy issue. In the US, we have about 10% brand recognition. In Europe, it's a little bit different. But so one of the things we decided to do 4 years ago was start an online communications program. And we really did ease into it. We started with a MySpace page, which took 4 months to get approval, to now where we're using Facebook. We have a Twitter account. If you go to Oxfam America, I actually did our most recent post backstage with a picture of the crowd, if you want to take a look. But at the end of the day, it's all about data. It's all about using source codes to track. And really the way that we've gotten buy-in over the last few years is showing, you know, from MySpace at the beginning, it was the thousands of new activists and hundreds of new donors that we've gotten from it. So really, at the end of the day, it's been all about data. But, you know, we're diving in with everything right now. And because of the results we've had the last few years, there's very little resistance to using this anymore.
Was there any initial resistance to using these tools? And if so, how did you sell that to either your executive director or the board?
Yeah, well, that was the 4-month process on a MySpace page, was explaining that, you know, we could talk in a more conversational style and really engage supporters instead of, you know, sending out a press release to supporters or, you know, an email every once in a while. But it was more of a conversation. Like we could send something out and say, hey, check out this story. You know, we found people were writing back to us, and we were lucky that we kind of started right when MySpace sort of was booming. And so we went from 0 to 1,000 in a month or two, but then from 1,000 to 30,000 in 3 or 4 months. So once people saw that, and they saw that people were writing about us and talking about us, that sort of opened up the door for being able to do more creative things.
When you think about what you've learned in terms of how these tools are helping you organize, I mean, you just mentioned some initial success, but what does it mean now to the organization, and how does the team think about how these tools are going to help going forward and growing your work?
Well, it's absolutely a critical piece now. I mean, we started with 1 person 4 years ago, now we have a team of 3, so that's, you know, it's decent growth. But we're part of every conversation. Every time there's a humanitarian disaster, they're asking us to put stuff up on Facebook. I mean, the people who are not communications people at all know it now. Or they're asking, you know, about YouTube videos and things like that. So it's now become a part of the more overall strategy when pushing specific issues. So we've definitely come a long way with that.
Great. Before I go on to our next panelist, I want to just remind all of you that you have the opportunity, should you be one of those people who doesn't like to get up and talk into a mic, to go to tinyurl.com/nonprofit panel, and you can post a question using Google Moderator. So if you'd like to have some fun trying that out while we're sitting here and talking, please do. Jake, talk to me a little bit about what you're doing at Energy Action, and a little bit also about how some of these tools can be helpful in the work you're doing, because you're a coalition-based organization.
Yeah, you might even say we're just a weird organization. So to kind of give a little bit of context, we're an organization of about 50 coalition partners, and maybe a better way to think about us as a coalition. Most coalitions are kind of a lot of different members come and pool the resources centrally and try to do something with that. We're a little bit backwards. It's more like a foundation that runs campaigns. Is maybe one way to think about it, but is also informed by the coalition in many ways, kind of held accountable by the coalition at the same time. So it's a little bit of a different model than I've ever seen employed in much of anything else. So